So we have identification of the ions in the gases. You can use the chat, you can use mic or screen annotation to answer. These are the tests for the anions, the negative ions, like if we want to test carbonate ion, chloride, bromide, iodide, and the observations are also shown. Sulfate, sulfide, nitrate ions. For paper 6, you don't have to memorize this. This will be there in exam. You just have to use and write the answer. And these are the tests for the cations, the positive ions, and tests with aqueous sodium hydroxide and aqueous ammonia in 5 drops and in excess, what you'll observe. And these are the tests for the gases: ammonia, carbon dioxide, chlorine, hydrogen, oxygen, sulfur dioxide. And these are the flame tests, because sometimes we carry out a flame test and identify the ions. So nothing, you don't have to memorize anything here. Okay. You just have to use this. So I have already shared these 3 pictures with you. So I want everyone to use this observations and the results and answer certain questions. The first question I will solve, just to give you an idea. You can also use your mic, chat, or screen annotation if you want to, for the first question. Now, we have the first question. We have a mixture of 2 solid compounds are there, D and E. And solid D was zinc salt. So the D is a zinc salt, which is soluble in water or dissolved in water. And solid E was an insoluble metal carbonate. So there is a carbonate ion, but which metal is with carbonate, we don't know. Tests on the mixture and some observations are in the following table. Complete the observations. First thing, what we did, about half of a mixture of D and E were placed in a test tube. And the mixture was heated green to black and condensation form. First thing, whenever it's a colored salt, what does it give an idea? If a colored salt is there, what does give an idea? Because they already mentioned D is zinc salt, as I mentioned in the beginning, that D is a zinc salt. So we know about D, that there is a zinc and then any other thing is there. And E is a metal carbonate. So because it is a colored salt, so what this give an idea? This give an idea that this salt contain what? It contain a transition element or a transition metal. So because transition metals, they always form a colored compound. Condensation form. So whenever you heat, whenever we heat a salt and we observe a condensation form near the mouth of the test tube, what this give an indication? Whenever there's a condensation form near the mouth of the test tube, so this give an idea that this is a hydrated salt or contain water crystallization. Whenever condensation form, like, because what will happen when we have the hydrated salt, the salts which are having a water of crystallization, and we heat them. So when we heat them, the water molecule is removed, and then it is when once it loses its energy, it condenses at the mouth of the test tube. So whenever a solid is heated and a condensation form, so this give an idea that it is a hydrated salt. Okay. So the first one, the color change shows that it is a transition element, and the second one indicate it is a hydrated salt. Then the rest of the mixture, D and E, was added a distilled water, and the content of the tube was filtered. We have filtrate and the residue. Filtrate means what passes through, and the residue means what is left on the filter paper. So as they mentioned, D is a zinc salt which was soluble, and E is a metal carbonate. So what will be the residue here, D or E? Which salt will be the residue? D is a zinc salt which is soluble. So E will be the residue. E is the metal carbonate. And what about D? So D is a zinc salt. Because they already mentioned that D is a soluble zinc salt. So if it is a soluble zinc salt, it will dissolve and it passes through a filter paper. Where E is a metal carbonate is there, and that is Most carbonates are insoluble, so likely to be. So the residue is metal carbonate and the filtrate is zinc salt. But this is not having marks. In exam, you can write these points, but this does not have mark. This just to understand the concept of the question. Now, the residue was transferred from a filter paper. So we have a residue. This is a test on residue. Test on the residue means metal carbonate, because the residue is a metal carbonate. So we add about a sulfuric acid. When we add a metal carbonate plus sulfuric acid, what will be the product? Metal carbonate plus acid. What are the products? So it will form a metal sulfate salt plus water plus carbon dioxide. So the gas was tested with the lime water. So we have to state the observation. Whenever a gas is given off, and especially the carbon dioxide, so you can say fizz, effervescence, or bubbles. And the gas was tested with a lime water. When we test carbon dioxide with a lime water, what is the observation? Milky. So fizz, effervescence, or bubbles, and the lime water turn milky. So fizzing is the observation because of a gas given off, and the lime water will turn milky because of the carbon dioxide. So whenever carbonate is there, these are always the product. Is it clear, this one? Next is the solution obtained in C was divided into two equal portions, so that the solution is filtrate. And what is a filtrate here? The filtrate is a zinc salt. We know zinc and we don't know what else with zinc. To the first portion, we add excess of aqueous sodium hydroxide little at a time. The solution obtained in C. So the solution obtained in C is what? Because in test T, the solution obtained is a sulfate, metal sulfate, because we continue the test. It's not about the original solution, it's about the solution we obtain in C. So it is a metal sulfate. Okay. So the solution here, we have now metal sulfate as we add a sulfuric acid. So this is metal sulfate. We don't know which metal. But what we did in this metal sulfate, we add sodium hydroxide little at a time. And we observe a pale blue precipitate. Which ion is responsible for giving a pale blue or a light blue precipitate with sodium hydroxide? Copper. But whenever transition element is there, it's important that you write the valency as well. So if you write only copper, that is not the right answer. So you have to, and it's copper too. Okay. Because the transition elements, they have different colors at different valencies. Copper plus one is red when it form a precipitate. Copper plus two is blue. But you are most of the time you have only copper plus two. To the second portion, we add excess of aqueous ammonia little at a time. Like first we add some amount and then we add an excess. So what is the observation? Now this confirms that there's a copper ion. So it means this is copper sulfate. So if we have a copper sulfate solution and we add aqueous ammonia, what are the observations? You can use the table now. I have shared that table with you. You can use that. If you have a copper ion and you add aqueous ammonia. Yeah, that's right. Light blue precipitate which will dissolve to form a deep blue or inky blue or royal blue solution. If we have a copper ion and we test add aqueous ammonia, it will give what? It will give a blue PPT which will dissolve in excess to form deep blue solution or royal blue solution or inky blue solution. It is written with a test for the copper ion. Okay. So again, nothing is there in this question. You just have to use the table and write the answers. But it's important, interpretation is important. Now, test on the filtrate. The test on the filtrate means the zinc salt. So we are carrying out a test on a filtrate. It's a zinc salt. We know it's zinc, but we don't know which negative ion is present or which anion is there. To the first portion was added drops of sodium hydroxide little at a time with shaking. What is the observation when we add sodium hydroxide to a zinc salt? What is the observation? So, but not only white, you have to say white PPT, white precipitate. In exam, you can write PPT like if, and why it's of 2 mark, 1 mark is for writing white and 1 mark is for precipitate. If you write completely precipitate, that's fine. If you write only PPT, that's also correct. The next is excess of aqueous sodium hydroxide is added. Like if we add more than enough sodium hydroxide, what is the observation? If we add more than enough sodium hydroxide, what we'll observe? So what happened to the precipitate which was formed initially? So the precipitate will dissolve and form colorless solution. So the precipitate dissolve in excess to form a colorless solution. To the second portion, we add excess of aqueous ammonia. What is the observation if we add aqueous ammonia? If we have a zinc salt and we add excess of, if we have a zinc salt and we add aqueous ammonia. So here, yeah. So it's the same result. So same result is there. It will also give a white PPT, which will dissolve in excess to form colorless solution. If it is a white precipitate, it will form, and when it dissolves, it will form a colorless solution. If it is a colored precipitate, it will dissolve and it will form a colored solution. To the third portion was added hydrochloric acid and aqueous barium chloride. Look, what is this test for? Adding a barium chloride or barium nitrate for hydrochloric acid, followed by barium chloride or barium nitrate. What is this test for? Which ion can be tested by this way? So which ion can be tested by adding a hydrochloric acid and a barium chloride? No. If it is chlorine, bromine, iodine, we add silver nitrate or lead nitrate. But this is barium chloride or barium nitrate. Check the table because here only thing is you just have to use the table and identify. So sulfate. And if its sulfate is present, what it will give? White precipitate. So this give an idea that there's a sulfate ion. Because the results of if sulfate was not there, then they will mention no change or no visible change or no reaction. If the sulfate was not there, adding a barium chloride and barium nitrate, and if we don't observe any visible change, then we can say that the sulfate ion is absent. But here sulfate ion is present. What conclusion can you draw about identity of solid D? What we can say about solid D? Now, the solid D, they already mentioned solid D was a zinc salt was there as they mentioned. So what else is present with the zinc when we tested that? So sulfate ion is there. So what this give an idea? It's a zinc sulfate. It does not have any transition good. But and another thing, it is a hydrated salt. So it is hydrated zinc sulfate. How you will get 2 marks? 1 mark, or you can non-transition element. Hydrated, 1 mark is actually for hydrated, and 1 mark is for sulfate. Zinc does not have any mark, as it is there in the beginning. They mentioned that this salt contains zinc. Okay, so zinc is not having any marks there. What conclusion can you draw about identity of the cation, the positive ion of solid E? Solid E was the first one we tested. First we add sulfuric acid and then we add sodium hydroxide. It was copper. But why it's of 2 mark? Yeah, transition metal is there, that's right. But which transition, even if you see 2 marks are there, how you score the 2 marks? 1 mark is for writing copper and 1 mark is for writing the oxidation number. Or if you write in exam Cu plus 2, that is also correct. Or you can mention it contain copper 2 ion. 1 mark is for the metal and 1 mark is for the charge on. So for transition element, you should always write the charge. In question 2, a sample of a solution A, which is an acid. So we have an acid. Test on A and some observations are in the following table. Complete the observations in the table. First, the pH of the solution was tested using indicator paper. The pH, the color was orange and the pH is 4. What this give indication about the type of acid? What kind of acid is this? Weak acid, because the pH is 4 and the color is orange, so it gives an idea that this is a weak acid. Usually organic acids are weak acids. Organic acids such as ethanoic acid, propanoic acid, methanoic acid, these are the weak acids. Now, the solution was divided into 3 test tubes. So we have 3 test tubes. To the first portion was added a piece of a magnesium ribbon. Magnesium ribbon means, because magnesium is ribbon coil is there, but it's like a magnesium metal. So we add a magnesium metal to acid. Acid plus magnesium. Magnesium plus acid. What will be the product? It will be salt plus hydrogen. So magnesium ribbon was and the gas was tested with a lighted splint. So whenever a gas is given off, what is the first observation? Fizz, bubbles or effervescence. And then tested with a lighted splint. What is the observation if we, because a hydrogen gas is there, hydrogen gas with a lighted splint, what it gives? You can use the table. Pops. So pop sound, or you can also say pops, because hydrogen gas, pop sound, because acid plus metal gives salt and hydrogen fizz gives effervescence or pops. To the second portion was added sodium carbonate. So we have a metal carbonate, we have sodium carbonate, and we add an acid. What will be the product? Acid plus metal carbonate. Acid plus metal carbonate. What will be the product? It will be salt, water, and carbon dioxide. So to the second portion, we add the sodium carbonate. The gas was tested with a lime water. So it will be fizz, bubbles, or effervescence. And what will happen to a lime water? It will turn milky. So fizzing is there, effervescence you can mention, bubbles you can also mention, and the lime water will turn milky. Next is to the third portion, like we divide into 3 portions, was added a spatula of solid B. So acid, and we add another solid B. The mixture was boiled gently by using a teat pipette. The solution was transferred into another test tube and excess of aqueous ammonia is added. First, a green solution is formed and then dark blue solution formed. So what this give an idea about this substance B? Because A is an acid, liquid A is an acid, we know. But when we add the substance B, metal B, and we heat it, we observe first a green solution form and then the dark blue solution. What the colored solution indicates? What this indicates? That there's a colored solution. So when green solution is formed, this gives an idea that there's a transition element. But then excess of aqueous ammonia was added and we observe a dark blue solution. What this give an indication? If you add excess of ammonia and you observe a dark blue solution, copper 2. No, green solution does not indicate it's iron, because when you add sodium hydroxide or you add aqueous ammonia and then you observe green, then you will say iron is there. But here, first, when a reaction occurs, the reaction is forming a green solution, means that there is a transition element. And then to test which transition element is there, we add an excess of aqueous ammonia, which will form a dark blue solution. So this give an idea that this solution was copper. Because like copper salt does not mean it should always be blue color. Copper carbonate is actually green in color. Copper oxide is black in color. Copper sulfate is blue in color. So copper, the same element with the same oxidation number, will have different color compounds. So colored compound give an idea it's a transition, but to test which transition, we add excess of or aqueous ammonia or sodium hydroxide. Iron gives green precipitates as well, but here it is not added. Yeah, it is when you burn, it will give a blue-green color, flame color. But this is not burning. What we did, we have acid is there, acid A is there, and we add substance B. When acid A reacted with substance B, the solution turned green. Means the salt which is formed because of this compound B with A, that is green in color. But to this substance, when we add aqueous ammonia or ammonium hydroxide, it will form blue solution. This confirms that the ion which is present is a copper 2 ion. So this is not a flame test. This is a test. We add aqueous ammonia. What does what does test A tell you about the type of acid in solution A? So what this give an idea? The solution A, the first test that we mentioned, it is a weak acid. Name a gas given off in B1. Which gas is given off in B1? Which gas is released here? Hydrogen. So here, as they mentioned, name a gas. If you write H2, it's not correct, because you have to name a gas. So you're supposed to write hydrogen. Don't write H2. Name a gas given off in test B2. Which gas is given off in B2? Here, carbon dioxide. Because the lime water turned milky. So name, if you write CO2, that is not considered as correct, because the question is name, not write a formula. So you are supposed to write carbon dioxide. Don't write CO2. If they ask write a formula for gas given off, then write CO2. Explain the observation in B3. So we have to explain the observation in test B3. The observation in B3. So as you can see, this is B3. First, when it react, like acid react with B. So transition element is there, and this confirm it contain copper 2 ion. So explain the observation in B3. First thing, it contain transition element or transition metal, which is copper And whenever you write a transition metal, always write the valency of that. Copper can be +2, +1, but here you have only +2. So we have two compounds are there. One is B, another one is C. Compound B is a zinc salt and compound C is insoluble. So it's a similar to the question one we did. And one measure of a mixture was heated gently, a condensation formed. Whenever a condensation formed, what is given idea? It's what? Hydrated salt. So hydrated salts condensation will form. The gas release, actually this gas is what? These are water vapors. Because and test what is the test for the water? Well, as we discussed, we can add anhydrous copper sulfate or or we can also use a cobalt chloride. If you use a cobalt chloride, it will turn from blue to pink. And if you use anhydrous copper sulfate, it will be from white to blue. So this is actually confirmation that there is a water given out. This is a test to check the presence of water, cobalt chloride paper. The mixture was added and D is a soluble salt, water soluble, B is water soluble and C is insoluble. Test on a filtrate. What will be the filtrate? Is it B or C? What will the filtrate? B. Because the residue will be C. Filtrate means what passes through a filter paper. They mentioned B is soluble zinc salt. So zinc is there, and what else with zinc we don't know. Drops of sodium hydroxide was added. When we add sodium hydroxide and there is a zinc salt, what is the observation? Because filtrate is B and it is a zinc salt. So what is the observation if there is a zinc salt and adding a sodium hydroxide? So it will be white PPT. And in excess, what will happen? The precipitate will dissolve and it will form a colorless solution. So dissolve and form a colorless in excess. And because it's a zinc salt, to the second we repeat with aqueous ammonia. What will the observation? Same observation because it will be white precipitate which will dissolve and form a colorless solution. But don't write same, write white precipitate because 3 marks are there, so you're not supposed to just write same. Mention what you will observe. To the third portion, we add a hydrochloric acid and a barium nitrate. This is test for what? Which ion? Sulfate ion. So if it is a white precipitate, what does give an idea? There's a sulfate ion. So what it confirms about, so this is zinc sulfate. And because it was giving off water crystallization as well, so it is hydrated zinc sulfate. To the fourth portion, we add nitric acid and silver nitrate. This is a test for halide. Like this is a common test for chloride ion, bromide ion, or iodide. We can test all these ions by this way. So no visible change or no reaction is there. So what does give an idea? It means no halide is present. No halogen ion or no halide is there. Because this is a test for the halides. If it was chloride, it will give white precipitate, bromide, cream precipitate, and iodide, yellow precipitate. But because now no visible observation, so means the ions are not present here. So no halide is present or halide is absent, you can say. Test on residue. Residue is the salt, which is C here, as they mentioned, but they did not. It's a compound C was insoluble, but they did not mention anything about that. So, but it's a residue. So test on a residue, like substance C, we add a hydrochloric acid. When you add a hydrochloric acid to a substance, a rapid effervescence, lime water turned milky. So the gas given off is carbon dioxide. So which ion is present with this substance? Carbonate. So this gives an idea that C is a carbonate. We don't know which carbonate, but C is a carbonate. What does test A indicates? So what is the first test A indicate? What does this indicate? It is a hydrated salt or contain water of crystallization. What conclusion you draw about compound B? So compound B is hydrated zinc sulfate. And test C indicate it is carbonate ion, contain carbonate ion, and which gives off carbon dioxide when reacted with acid. Because acid plus carbonate gives carbon dioxide, salt, and water. So test C indicate that the compound B contain a carbonate ion, which gives off carbon dioxide when reacted with acid. Is it clear? These questions from identification of the ions?